Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is Penn State defensive recruiting coordinator and defensive back coach Terry Smith. Obviously not staying with the Division III football this week. We're moving up to Division I to talk to Coach Smith. We're going to talk to him about his time at Gateway, both as a player and a coach. There's a pretty important touchdown that he scored in 1986 that I want to talk to him about. And before I get any further into that, let's jump into the socials. If you haven't yet, make sure you follow us: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook. The only one different is Instagram. It's Dingo_talk. And if you're listening to us or watching us on YouTube, check out our other platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcast, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Like I said, we're going to talk to Coach Terry Smith about his playing career and coaching career, both at Gateway and at Penn State. We're going to talk to him a little bit about his professional career and really get into what that experience is like to know you get drafted. I mean, he was drafted in the 11th round. So we're going to talk to him about that. And then why it was time for him to get into coaching. That's a big thing. And what coaching means to him along the way, being able, as we talked to Coach DiDonato a couple weeks ago, going back to his high school and then going to his alma mater. Coach Terry Smith did the same exact thing, first going to Gateway and then going to Penn State. All of that, plus, can't have a WPIAL guy on with the track record that Coach Terry Smith has without talking about what I consider to be the greatest play in WPIAL Championship history, which was the hook and ladder to Cam Sadler. So hopefully he breaks that one down for us. And we're going to talk about, 6A and the private schools versus the public schools and I basically anything else that WPIAL-wise that you can talk to a guy like Coach Smith about. And then hopefully I remember to ask him about that cornerback out of Penn State that could be going number 17 in the draft this year to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But without further ado, again, I am Carlo Guadagnino. Thank you for joining us here for Dingo Talk. And this is defensive recruiting coordinator and cornerbacks coach Terry Smith.
Welcome back, Chuckleheads. I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. Joining us is Coach Terry Smith, entering his 9th season with the Penn State Nittany Lions. He's the defensive back coach and defensive recruiting coordinator for the Nittany Lions. Coach, thank you for taking time to sit down with us.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Carlo, for having me.
So I'm going to take you back, as we do with every other coach. I'm going to take you back to 1986. As a member of the Gateway Gators, you were the quarterback of a pretty special team there, huh?
Yeah, it was we had a really special team. We finished the year undefeated, went 13-0. We won the WPIAL Championship. We beat a then ranked number 1 team in the country, North Hills, per USA Today rankings. And then we ended up finishing number 3 in the country in the final poll of that year. So, it was a pretty exciting year and a great year for us.
And in that WPIAL Championship game, you have the only touchdown of the box score. How's that grab you when you look back now as with that team being number 1 and what that meant to you as a young player?
Yeah, at the time you're thinking, well, it was a quarterback sneak, so it's a little 1-yard game for the touchdown, but it was the deciding points in the game. And when you look back, we only scored the 1 touchdown, and it happened to be me. So I'm proud of that accomplishment. And the prior year we played North Hills to a 0-0 tie. And so neither team won, and this was in the WPIAL Championship as well. So we were co-champs, and neither team scored. So, for 2 teams to play back-to-back years in the WPIAL Championship and a total of 13 points, today's football minds would be going crazy. So, back then it was defensive struggles, and just proud that we were able to punch one in and get our extra point, which decided the victory.
Now, what helped you make the decision for Penn State? Why was Penn State what felt like home for you?
Yeah, there was a number of things that played a factor. One that was glaring right at us was the year Penn State won its last national championship, beat Miami in the Fiesta Bowl. So, at that time, you're talking about the number one team in the country. Second, I had a cousin, Marcus Henderson, who played at Aliquippa High School, that was playing in the secondary for Penn State. So family connection there helped. And then the third, my dad is a 68 grad of Penn State. So that was always kind of in the back of my mind as, Penn State was a viable choice. And, I had basketball scholarship offers as well. But seeing as though my size was, 5'8", and, didn't have no future really in that as, just law of, what my size was, I decided to switch positions and, go to Penn State.
Now, I want to make sure I read this correctly. I was reading a quote from Joe Paterno about you. I believe it was after a game at Rutgers your senior year. And he said, "I don't know whether there's a better wideout in the country at what he does. When he runs with the ball, he blocks. So you were kind of an every down wide receiver, get in there, block, catch your passes, everything, right?"
Yes.
Now, why was that your style of play?
Well, first and foremost, that was what was asked and required of us at the position back then. Offenses today, we throw the ball all over the field. Back then, you really only threw the ball on third down, obvious pass situations, occasional play action pass on first down. But you were just an extension of the run game. And, that was what was required. I like to view myself as the ultimate team player, and whatever the team is asking, whatever coach wants me to do, whether that's going down there blocking 220-pound Mike linebackers, and in my 150-pound frame at the time, that's what I would do. And, I do it to the best of my ability. And, I prided myself on being tough. My dad always told me, being a small guy, you can't lay out on the field. So, you got to get in there and mix it up and earn your respect. And that's what I tried to do every day.
Now, when you come to the end of your college career, you end up getting drafted by the Washington Redskins in the 11th round. Walk us through that, because there's a lot of people that, there's a lot of high school football players. Then there's 1% of those guys that end up at the Division I level. And then 1% of that 1% do get the opportunity to go to the NFL. So what was, first off, what was the feeling when you get the phone call that, hey, you're with a team? And let's just talk about your professional career, playing wise.
Yeah, so I was fortunate to be drafted by the Washington Redskins. It was kind of a mixed feeling. It was an 11th round pick, so it wasn't early where the no-brainer excitement of, man, you're going to automatically make this roster. But then it was relief, and happiness, because I can take that to my grave as being drafted by the NFL. And I can tell my kids that. It was a major accomplishment in my life. So, just total elation. My family was right there. My mom and dad were right there when we got the phone call. I was up in State College at that time. It was just a great moment, just truly, truly happy and blessed. The unfortunate side of the draft was being chosen to the Washington Redskins. They had just won the Super Bowl. And as they just won the Super Bowl, they had the three Amigos receivers in place. And then they drafted Desmond Howard with the third or fourth pick of the draft. They're not going to make a lot of changes, because you just won a championship. Why would you make a lot of changes? These are the 3 receivers that led you to the Super Bowl. Plus, you get a 3rd pick in the draft. He's guaranteed to make the roster. So, that it was a difficult situation. I made it all the way to the final cuts of camp. Had what I thought was a really good camp. And at that time, I kind of twinged my hamstring, and so the writing was kind of on the wall. It just is what it is. So they let me go, and then maybe a couple months later or a month later, I get a tryout with the the Atlanta Falcons. And I go down to that workout, and I completely pull my hamstring like bad as can be. So that shut that season down. Then through the off season, I rehabbed and had to go through the Canadian Football League, where I signed with the Toronto Argonauts. I was with them for a year. Then the next 2 years, I was with the Shreveport Pirates, which they had some American teams in the Canadian League at that time. And then that final year in '96, I went to the Albany Firebirds, which was the Arena League. And I broke my hand, which was like the first major injury I ever had in my career. And I just did a self-check at that point and said, is this where I want my career or where I want to play? Because my career was headed away from the NFL, not toward the NFL. And at that time, I decided it's time to go and put my degree to work. And, I just started to work and do some sales. And, in that same year of '96, my dad, you're from Pittsburgh. So, there used to be the Pittsburgh Press back in the day. My dad pulled out the Pittsburgh Press, the newspaper, and looked at the Sunday ads. And Casey Cavanaugh put an ad in the paper for Hempfeild, looking for an assistant coach. And my dad said, why don't you try that? And lo and behold, I tried it, loved it, was there for a year, led the team to the playoffs for the first time in school history. Then my great buddy, Curtis Bray, fellow Gateway alum, was down at Duquesne University coaching with then head coach Greg Gattuso, who is a Penn State alum. Said, why don't you come down and join our staff? So for the next 4 years, I go to Duquesne, have a great run of things. We're winning MAC conference championships, have a great job there. And then Paul Holschuh, who is the athletic director at Gateway at the time, says, hey, we'd love for you to come back. Tom Organ's the head coach. He's got 1 more year till retirement. If you can come back, kind of help us run the offense, then you be the guy in waiting. So then I did that. That was an awful experience for that year.
Really?
Just because, we weren't a good organization at that time. And I wanted to do some things my way, but I wasn't the head coach. So, you only have so much you can really do. So that one there, it really, to be honest, it taught me true adversity. It taught me, how to lose gracefully, and how to not want to lose that way ever again. So the following year, 2003, I end up taking over as the head coach, or 2002, I'm sorry. I take over as the head coach at Gateway, and we make a really good run into the semifinals and lose to eventual champion Woodland Hills. And from there, we run it, a string of years. I think I was there 11 years, and 9 of the years we won conference titles. Just had a really, really good run of good players.
I was going to say, I saw 3 of those conference titles firsthand over at Plum. And what I wanted to point out is it's interesting. You said you learned how to lose gracefully, but it was also that you didn't want to feel that again. And in all actuality, in that 11 years, there was only 30 times that you guys did lose. And I want to come back into this WPIAL conversation, this WPIAL championship, because so you're, as a high school player, you're part of a play that beats the number 1 team in the country, leads to you guys being the number 3 team in the country when it's all said and done. fast forward to your coaching career, and this is a theme this season for us here at Dingo Talk. Coaches who played at a school, coached, were given the opportunity to come back both to their high school and their college. But specific play I want to talk to you about, Cam Sadler, what's considered to be arguably the best play. I talked to my dad about it. He went to 30 straight WPIAL Championship games. He said he never saw anything like it to end a game or to send a game into overtime. What do you think of that now, looking back on it, and what that play meant and how it developed?
Yeah, so the play call is called Our Father. And what it's built on is, you know how the traditional throw the ball up in the end zone is a Hail Mary. Mm-hmm. Well, this was kind of one of those desperate plays where, your back's to the wall. It doesn't look like you have a real opportunity, but you got to try to trick the defense. And so, we had practiced that play every week the entire season, waiting for whenever the right moment would be. And, we had it in our back pocket. We knew coming out that possession that if we got to a certain point on the field, we were going to call it. Little Cowstown, my quarterback, he executed. And basically it was, we run just a backside slant, and you hit the quick slant, and you have the back coming from the opposite side of the field, and you just catch it, take a step or two, and you pitch that thing. And based on pursuit of defense, they're all running to the football, but not running to the opposite direction of where the running back is coming from. So, it was an awesome play call. It was an awesome execution by our players. I think John Pryor was the kid that caught it and then pitched it to Cam Sadler, and Cam, did Cam, who was a terrific athlete, and just did some special things on the field, and allowed us the opportunity to score that. And then we turned around and had to go for a 2-point play that we already had called as well, and got the 2-point to go into overtime. So it was just, one of those historic plays that just, when you look at a championship game, that's how you want a championship to be played. You want two teams battling it out, neck and neck, all the way to the wire, and then a team will win in the end. So, we fought to our last leg, and unfortunately, we didn't pull a game out in overtime, but it created a stage of excitement that here we are still talking about it many, many years later.
Well, and as I pointed out, there was only 30 times that you guys at Gateway lost. There was 101 of those games that you won in pretty dominant fashion, I would say. There were a lot of points scored. But you also pointed out Cam being one of them, Justin King, who I've had on the show. Some of these special players, 25 of your guys went to 1A schools, which I remember when I was a sophomore in high school, you giving a talk where you said that's the goal as a high school coach. The goal was to get you to college. That was your goal. And not only to have 25 of those guys go Division I, but then 17 more of them still went 1A, 1AA, which is now sub bowl. What was it that consistently got good players into Gateway?
It was a environment and culture of great work ethic. Our guys knew and they believed that if they just followed the blueprint, they would have an opportunity to go play collegiate football at some level for a fraction of the cost of what college football or college really costs. So, we had tremendous buy-in, and it started in 2002 with my very first team, which probably wasn't one of my more talented teams, but one of my better led teams. We just had guys that really, they were fed up with losing at Gateway, and they bought into the off-season workouts, and we came in like drill sergeants, and we put together an off-season program that really broke them down and then lifted them back up. And by the time the season came, we were fully confident that we could compete. And, like I said, it wasn't one of my more talented teams, but we believed in each other. And those guys played for each other. And they set a stage for what Gateway is today. And really hasn't fallen off. There's been some years where, you may not win 9 or 10 games, but, Gateway hasn't fallen since 2002. So it's been, those guys just had great work ethic, and they bought in and believed. And I had such a great coaching staff. There was guys like my brother, Harvey Smith, who was my first offensive coordinator, Mike Booth, who was my first defensive coordinator, and John Ruane, who's just doing a tremendous job at Penn Trafford now. Just countless guys. Lauren Cooley was the head coach at Baldwin High School. And there was just so many guys that contributed, and everybody had buy-in. And, we did national games. We hosted kickoff classics. We did things that no one had ever seen before. We brought St. Joe's Prep across the state before they were really St. Joe's Prep. Then it was almost like we introduced them to the world, and then they become this big time station, but even Cleveland St. Ed's came in, and St. Ignatius came in, and Harrisburg or Bishop McDevitt came in. So we were just doing things far, far ahead of, our time, and just our culture was right. The guys believed, and, once we won that first year, then nobody wanted to be the team that let us down, and, it just kept rolling.
Now, why in 2013 do you decide it's time to go back up to the college level?
Well, there's a combination of things. I never looked for it. Being transparent, it was a difficult time at Gateway. Many coaches go through just an administrative struggle, and I was in the middle of an administrative struggle that we didn't see eye to eye on how to run the program. And then lo and behold, a blessing walks through the door. At the time, I had Thomas Woodson was my quarterback, who eventually went on to play at Akron. Matt Rule had just gotten hired at Temple, and he was coming in to recruit Thomas Woodson. So Matt comes to my office. We're sitting talking. I'm getting ready to call Thomas Woodson down so Matt can meet him in person. And Dorian Bell walks through the door. Dorian Bell at the time was a student athlete at Ohio State. He had a life crisis going on. And I asked Matt, can you give me a couple minutes? I need to deal with my player. This is critical. In between all of that conversation, I get back to Matt and I say, hey, Matt, I'm going to get Thomas down for you. He said, no, you know what? I made a mistake. I need to talk to you a little bit later. I said, no. I said, Thomas Woodson, he's really good. Trust me, coach. He's your guy. He said, no, not that mistake. He said, I offered a guy my last position on my staff, but I think it needs to be you. And he said, would you be interested in coaching at the collegiate level? And I said, yeah. He said, well, let's talk later. You take care of this situation. I'll call you later. He calls me later. Lo and behold, 2 days later, I'm hired. I'm at Temple. And it was all because he saw how I cared for not just my current roster players, but my past players, and how I was passionate. And I know that God has truly blessed me because my heart and intentions are all for the good of these young men that I'm able to touch. And so those blessings, just like that blessing right there, that's literally how I got hired to go to Temple. And then while I'm at Temple, I did a really nice job recruiting guys and brought a bunch of guys in. And we didn't have a good team, but I had a good year individually with my guys. Robbie Anderson, who is still in the NFL, I coached him at receiver. And the whole season, Matt kept saying, Penn State's going to come and get you. Penn State's going to come and get you. And I'm like, I've not talked to no one from Penn State. I'm a loyal soldier to you, you know. And so lo and behold, James Franklin gets the job. I don't know, it's like January 23rd. It was a Wednesday. 1 year to the date that Matt Rule came and got me. And so those things worked out. It's funny how you just remember these things like yesterday, because when I went to interview at Penn State, on that ride home was when I got the phone call, unfortunately, of the death of Curtis Bray, one of my good friends and good teammates. And so I'm riding a great high, knowing I've just knocked this interview out, and then a great low to hear one of my best friends is no longer with us. So, it was a tremendous ride. It was just a blessing. And so I didn't look to go to college, but oh, what a blessing came in front of me.
Now, so 9 years later, we're sitting here today. What does Coach Terry Smith look for in a recruit? What are you looking for in the player?
So there's a number of things. You're obviously the kid has to be talented. Mm-hmm. He has to be different than just good. I always say to people, if there's a grandma in the stands that don't really know football, she knows who the best player on the field is. And you got to stand out, and just anyone at that game says, man, that number 10 or that number, whoever that kid is, he was different. And so that guy, just some elite athleticism. But more importantly than that, he got to be a good person. Okay. We want good people that fit our culture, fit our locker room, people that are going to do right by other people, people we can be proud to say, this guy's a Penn State guy. Mm-hmm. Academics, very important, and especially in today's times with NIL so prevalent, we still want a guy that wants to get a degree and be educated, because those people that are educated make better decisions over the course of their life. It's just proven. And so, it's important for us, and we're not 100% graduation, but we're high in graduation rate. It's a important ingredient that we like here at Penn State, and we want, and it has fit us forever. So, those probably the three main ingredients. And then we get every kind of dynamic of a kid, from rich to poor to in between, and white, black, or whatever. Those are irrelevant. It's just, are they just culturally a good fit for Penn State, athletically, socially, academically, and then just good people.
Now, when you're sitting back in an off season and you think about throughout your coaching career, you've got the opportunity to go back to both of your alma maters and coach. What does that mean to you?
Man, I have been so blessed that I could go back to Gateway, a place that helped mold me and shape me as a youngster, that showed me so many great moments of my life. To be able to go back and share my experiences with so many young people, to help them have great experiences. And hopefully, like even now, like Morty Ivy's the defensive coordinator there. Morty was my first Division I scholarship kid to West Virginia. Wow. And he's now giving back and sharing back at Gateway. That's what it's about. David Washington or David Williams, I'm sorry, is the receivers DB coach there. He played at Michigan State, then transferred to Duquesne. Just the ability to give back to them, and then to have the opportunity to go to Penn State, where to come out of the tunnel at Beaver Stadium as a player, I caught 15 touchdown passes in that uniform, to have a tremendous career. At the time, I was the single season leading receiver in every category. Then to watch my son play at Penn State, I'm on cloud nine. I'm coaching at Gateway, and I just get to sit at the 50-yard line and watch him play. And then to come back and be able to walk the sidelines as a coach, man, there can't be anything better than the experience that I'm feeling now. I love Penn State. It has been tremendous to me and my family, all the way from my dad graduating in '68 to today. My daughter graduates in May this spring. And so it's been it's a blessing, and I'm just happy and appreciative.
Well, congratulations to her as well. We got to make sure we get that in there.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So we have 5 questions. They're very off the wall, kind of spitball at you. First place, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Whew. Well, I do want my retirement home to be in Tampa. I see Tampa as a smaller city, kind of like Pittsburgh, where you have the best of, if you want a fast life, you can live a fast life. If you want a slow life, you can live a slow life, and it's close enough to the waters where I can fish.
I like the sound of that. What's the most important lesson you've learned throughout your career?
The most important lesson I've learned is to be a good steward, be a good person. I'll give you an example. So go back to the story of Matt Rule. So Matt, in the midst of cross-checking who I was once he'd spoken to me, called his cousin, who at that time was a high school head coach who sat on the board of directors of the Pennsylvania State Coaches Association with me. At that time, he and I befriended each other. He asked me to write a letter of recommendation. He was trying to get a job, blah, blah, blah. And at that point, we were just really meeting each other, just getting to know each other. But lo and behold, that guy is Matt Rule's cousin. And the lesson behind it is, if I was just this arrogant person, like, no, get away from me, I'm not going to do that for you, I'm not going to help another person, I don't get that job.
No.
And so it taught me, just be good to people, and karma will follow you in a positive way. And so that's the lesson I try my best to teach my student athletes now today.
I think that's a lesson that if we could get a couple more people in the world to start thinking that way, we might get this thing turned around.
Absolutely.
So this next one's a 2-parter, and then we'll go to the last question. Best compliment you've ever gotten?
Joe Paterno said I was pound for pound his best player.
That's something that's another one of those, you get to hold that for the.
Yeah, 150 pounds, kind of, I'm proud of that. And my teammates, they all, when we get together, we give our war stories from back in the day. And, I'm proud of the performance I put on the field. Wasn't perfect, but the effort was always there for my teammates.
Other side of the best compliment you've gotten, what is the best what is an insult that you are most proud of?
Man, that was a tough one there.
So we had the coach from Grove City on, and he said the best insult that he received is they all call him Simple. Now that team has made 4 straight bowl appearances and is on the right. So maybe Simple is the.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it was, I'll just spit it out. Like, when I was at Gateway, there was always an underlying current that people said I recruited kids. And so to me, that's an insult, because I never had to do that, because we had a culture within Gateway that it projected success, and the culture and the buy-in to that allowed me to be able to guide many, many young men to go get free education. So that insult kind of is probably the best thing, but it fueled me to keep and continue to help all these young men.
Wow. I grew up in the area, so I know the rumors were every year. It was somebody new had been recruited. They came from here and all over. And then there's a school down in the city of Pittsburgh that nobody questioned, and they brought people from all over the place. So
that's the team that beat me in the championship after Cam Sadler's play.
We won't say their names, but if you know the WPIAL, you know the conversation that could be had. So the last one of the random questions is, if you could sit down with 3 people and have lunch with them, who would it be and why? It could be historical, could be coaches, could be athletes, anybody that you would like to sit down with. 3 people.
Man, Martin Luther King, for just obvious reasons, such a smart man that impacted all Americans today. Muhammad Ali, who I think is the greatest world champion of any sport, and his humanity of what he did for people as well. And then probably Barack Obama, being the first African-American president of the United States. I would love to sit and just chop it up with him.
Now, that lunch, that would be a very interesting lunch, because just the personalities coming together. Somebody's going to have to tell Muhammad Ali, listen, we're going to talk to you, man, but we got to talk to these guys too. So,
absolutely.
Last question of the episode. For those of you just joining us, this is Terry Smith, defensive backs coach and defensive recruiting coordinator for the Penn State Nittany Lions. Coach, was there a question you were expecting me to ask that I did not ask you? And if so, how would you have answered it?
Well, I might have thought you would ask me about Joey Porter, who is a local Western Pennsylvania kid from North Allegheny, who is projected to be a first-round draft pick. And maybe the question is, how is Joey, and how did he develop, or how did we get Joey? And it's a great story. So Joey wasn't a no-brainer coming out of high school. And I'll wrap it up really quick. So we're doing a staff retreat in Pittsburgh, all the Penn State coaching staff. We do it every summer. We pick a city within Pennsylvania, go there, do a 2-day staff retreat right before camp, all get on the same page, go into the season. So we're headed back home to State College, and we say, you know what, let's stop off in Latrobe to the Steelers camp, watch them practice, then we'll get back on the bus and go home. So we watch them practice, and we're all getting ready to walk off the field and get on the bus, and then we notice little Joey Porter, who we were, kind of recruiting, but we weren't sure, starts doing one-on-ones with Antonio Brown. AB. Ooh. Yeah, that's what we said. Ooh. And when we started watching, it was like, okay, AB won one, Joey Porter won one. AB won one, Joey Porter won one. And we're sitting there like, if this guy's even hanging with AB, he's a no-brainer for us. And that's how we went full steam ahead and said, let's go get Joey Porter.
And, it's interesting as a Pittsburgh guy and a Pittsburgh guy, and I know there's a bunch of mock drafts out there, and he just seems to fall right into a really nice number that could keep him very regionally home, I guess you would say. The last question I have for you, because it just popped into my head, what can we expect from the 2023 Nittany Lions?
We're super excited about the season. We have a great core of guys coming back. Obviously the expectation is super high, but we're very grounded as an organization. Our motto is go 1-0 each week. And, right now on the clock is West Virginia University. So we're going to have a great off season. We've started winter conditioning. We're a couple weeks into that. And man, we've hit the ground running hard and fast. We're excited. We got a new changing of the guard at quarterback. We're excited about that opportunity for a couple guys that are going to battle it out this spring. And, we're defensively, we're going to be fantastic. We played great defense here, and we're going to play great defense. So we're going to be good. And we just got to take each game one at a time. And, following up from this past season with a great Rose Bowl win, 11-2 season, we just want to take it one step further than that.
Well, Coach, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with a guy that if we drew the map, there's Penn Hills and Monroeville everybody knows about. Then right in the middle of those two, there's this little town. It's a borough, actually. It's called Plum. So 2 roads separate the schools from each other if you really map it out. But thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with me. For those of you that are sticking around for the editorial with Serenity Brown, that's coming up next. Again, this was Terry Smith, defensive backs coach and defensive recruiting coordinator for the Penn State Nittany Lions. Best of luck this year, Coach, and we'll see you in a little bit, Chuckleheads.
What's going on, Chuckleheads, and welcome back. We are here. It's the editorial. That's Serenity Brown. I'm Carlo Guadagnino. Holy Christ, people, we got action from this. She must really like this episode, so let's jump right in. But before we do that, I guess I should give them the social medias, right? Yeah. Social medias, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook. The only one that's different is Instagram. It's Dingo_talk. If you're looking to stay with us, where you can watch or listen, YouTube and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and anywhere else you can get your podcasts. We just finished watching I did that in the intro too. Coach Terry Smith, the defensive recruiting coordinator and DB coach for Penn State. Nice. Okay, so take it away. What'd you like? What you didn't like?
What I didn't like, we'll go first just because it's obviously at the very, very beginning. This was the first intro since we've started the new season that you did without me. And I would just say, if in the future something comes up like something did this time, just raise the camera up a little bit.
You didn't like the
I didn't like the cut at the forehead.
Well, my hair is running away from my face, so I'm trying to make sure that people get used to seeing me as bald. But yeah, you're right. I pointed it out to you as well before I handed it to you. I said, I cut the head off, and
we're gonna work with it this week. Just know some.
Sorry, Coach.
Raise the camera up just a little bit.
Only negative?
Yeah, I think it was a good episode. I like that you were excited for the episode.
Without fangirling out like I did for Colony.
But I think he gave a good interview. Mm-hmm. He gave energy. He told stories very well. I thought it was really, the only note that I wrote down and didn't have in my brain was, it's cool AF because I won't curse.
Why?
He was drafted.
You help upload this. There's an explicit tag on it. You're allowed to say fuck. It's allowed to be said. Nobody's out there watching that's gonna go, oh my god, Serenity said fuck.
I think it was cool that he was drafted, though. It seems like with some of the stories he was telling, it seems like he would ride a high, and then something would happen, life would just happen, kind of come down. But I think that's what led him to where he is now. So it all worked out for the best, I guess.
I love his breakdown on, I got drafted by the Redskins. I made it all the way to the final cut, but Desmond Howard was drafted. These guys were there. And he's so he's so comfortable with it.
Understanding about it too.
Okay, I get it. And continued to move. I mean, obviously he has the injury that kind of ends the NFL side of his playing career. But then going and playing in Canada, and then to come back to the States, play in the arena. And the arena's not easy. I mean, you're talking about think about football, but put it on a hockey rink with some turf. It's not. And the boards, you can get hit into those. In real life, they hit you. It's not great. I thought it was cool how his coaching story, kind of the path that he took, coming back to the WPIAL, and it being WPIAL School College, WPIAL School back into college and now has stayed in the college. And I can tell you, there was 3 years there of seeing that man across the sideline, and for some very proud games against the Gateway Gators. But they were a very well-oiled machine for many years. And they, as he said, they really haven't fallen off. They've just changed classifications. I really enjoyed having that conversation with him about where the classifications sit. And because I thought you would bring it up, but maybe a lot of people forget this guy. But Joe Paterno once said that he didn't know whether there was a better wideout in the entire country than Terry Smith, and
some high words
from the guy who won the most football games in the collegiate game. So, Coach Terry was awesome. I hope that we can get some other Gateway Gators that we've talked to on. Curveball for you. Top 3 Girl Scout cookies. Go.
Tagalongs, Thin Mints. Those 2 are no-brainers.
It's hard. The third one's hard.
I don't know if I have a third one because I don't like coconut. I don't.
Don't they like a Nutter Butter kind of?
Do they? I don't know. But I've never been a fan of a lot of people like those, the lemon ones.
No, yeah.
I
Okay.
don't like those. But Tagalongs and Thin Mints, those are
and they're all it's a common mistake.
I finished my box of Tagalongs already.
It's a common mistake. You reverse them. It's actually Thin Mints then Tagalongs.
I disagree.
Okay, well we will not accept that answer. It would be marked wrong if this was a test.
Too bad.
Well, thank you to Cassie Swihart's niece for the Girl Scout cookies. They came in. They were great.
Yeah, I finished the Tagalongs in one night. So.
I don't know. Is there anything else
I don't think so.
Anything on your mind? Have you learned so far through this season? What have you learned?
I mean, I don't think I've necessarily learned anything
Thus far.
Most of the stuff I guess learned has not been really show related. It's more of you talking to me when we're just either watching football or. Well,
you guys can join the conversation at home as well if you want to tag on and tell us which Girl Scout cookies you like, top 3. I don't think there's anything else. I don't know. I'm feeling like there's something else. Are we missing something? Oh yes, there is. Who would you sit down with?
Oh my God, I don't need it.
I gave you 3 weeks off of this. All right. Well, she can't figure it out. We're gonna figure it out and maybe come back next week. We'll definitely be back next week. I'll be back next week. She might not be. I don't know.
You're firing me?
No, can't do that. You live across the hall. You live in the same room as me. So no. I think we're gonna go back into Division 3 next week.
Okay.
This was a nice little jump.
Just tell me what to edit and I edit it.
Well, it was a nice little jump up into Division 1. Coach Franklin, if you're watching, we'd love to have you on the show. But we're going to jump back down into Division 3. And I'm not sure if we're going to go OAC or PAC. So we'll keep the door open there. But I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Serenity Brown. This has been the editorial. You've been watching Dingo Talk. And that was Coach Terry Smith. Thank you again for joining us. And we will catch you next week, Chuckleheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.